Hello and welcome to Frank Fridays. My name is Karline and I'm the founder of Art Frankly. I'd like to introduce my Frank Friday collaborator, Ellie Hayworth, to you. Ellie is the founder of Hayworth Communications Consultancy, and she has grown her business to command a full scope of client services, including PR, content development, business strategy, speaking events, strategic partnerships. Seriously, anything you can think of, Ellie can help you. And today we are chatting with Jamie Diamond. Jamie is a photo-based artist living and working in New York. Jamie has exhibited in solo and group exhibitions nationally and internationally, some of which include Fondazione Prada in Italy, Mass Mocha here in the US, the Bronx Museum, Gallery Frank Pages in Geneva, Prada Mode in Hong Kong, and this is just to name a few. Since 2009, Jamie has been lecturing in photography at the University of Pennsylvania, and she is currently the undergraduate photography coordinator at UPenn's Fine Art Department. Jamie is included in two major group shows opening soon, one in Montreal at the CCA and another in Germany at the Deichtorhallen in Hamburg. She also has a solo show forthcoming at Kaevenig Gallery in Berlin. And we're really excited to chat with Jamie today. So I'll let Ellie get the interview started.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you, Karline and Jamie. It is really, really a pleasure to meet you today.
Oh, for me too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be great fun. So Jamie, following up on Karline's bio and introduction here, you consider yourself an interdisciplinary artist. I know you describe yourself as a photo-based artist. Can you unpack a little bit what that means and just how that translates into your practice?
Of course. Yeah, so I consider myself a lens-based artist. So my work predominantly takes the form of photography, though I've worked in video and sculpture and installation. So, yes, I say lens-based, which I feel like is open-ended enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about just, what themes that you are investigating in your work, and also just, what kind of impetus drew you to becoming a lens-based artist?
Well, art is in many ways is how I navigate the world. I started oil painting at the age of 7, and I transitioned into photography more seriously in my early 20s. But I think what inspired me in many ways as an artist is, the world around me, and responding and reacting, and while remaining vulnerable and open. I think one of the luckiest things about my work is that I've met people from, different worlds, different backgrounds. So my work, often takes, I'm interested in intimacy and connectivity, oftentimes investigating different kind of family structures and themes related to identity and womanhood. So gender construction. And we could talk maybe about some of the other projects, some of my more recent work soon.
Yeah, that would be great. And I'm actually happy we can go ahead and segue into that. I mean, it sounds to me like you have 3 forthcoming milestones. So please feel free to kind of unpack a little bit about what we can come to expect from your new work.
Yeah, so it's been such a strange year in so many ways, to say the least. And I am very fortunate that I have 2 upcoming group exhibitions. One is at the CCA in Montreal. It's a group exhibition. And I am very excited because I'm showing a new body of work, some images from a new project called Skin Hunger. And, in that body of work, I've been, examining that subject since 2015. And it really deals with the service economy surrounding non-sexual platonic intimacy. It's a subject that has grown. Yeah. And it's interesting because I started in 2015, but it's grown exponentially since that investigation. And, there's a real consumer culture that has emerged, which allows individuals to satisfy on demand the need for, interpersonal relationships. So you can kind of rent out intimacy. And it's available hourly for a price. And obviously it brings a whole new set of expectations And, what interests me is predominantly the notion of boundaries and consent and the intersection between intimacy and commerce. And, obviously it takes on many new questions regarding authenticity and connectivity and just for our relationships in general. So it's a subject, as I said, I started in 2015. I started making work in 2019. And obviously the pandemic affected the progress of that work considerably, though, there's been a lot of interesting and unexpected things that have happened along the way. So I'm really excited to be showing some images from that series. I recently had a conversation with Melissa Harris, who's a remarkable woman and curator. And she also curated my exhibition at the Prada Foundation that Karline mentioned in Milan and in Hong Kong. So it's really nice to just talk about the work and, share my experience. And in many ways, I think it's very prescient, of the time that we're living now. And so that's at the CCA. And then at the show in Hamburg, it's a show all about family. And I'm showing earliest photographic series, which is kind of interesting because I'm showing the first photographic body of work and now my most recent, which was from 2000, which I started, and it's ongoing, and it's called The Constructed Family Portraits, where I construct essentially a family made of complete strangers for the camera. And, I'm interested in the performance of inherited social roles. I'm interested in the pantomimes that we instinctively perform when subject to the photographic gaze. I'm interested in kind of the shifting paradigm of the family structure. And all of them are in hotel rooms, which is kind of, they're named after the hotel where I photographed them. So, the Hilton family and the Western family. And what's really nice about showing it there is I'm showing, I believe there's 6 images that I'm showing at the museum. So I hope I'll be able to attend. I'm not sure, but at least I've seen some images and documentation online, and it looks beautiful, the installation overall.
That's really, really exciting. And certainly I think the first exhibition, Skin Hunger, that you were speaking about, I do think, it certainly is prescient. And I also think people will be interpreting it through a new lens, considering we've all been so siloed for the past year. So I think that is really fascinating. And I also kind of love the idea of, getting a group of strangers together and having them kind of typecast into these roles, and they therefore kind of assume the dynamic. And I don't know, I'd be curious to see if by the naked eye one could make out that they are strangers, or if they have in fact this same kind of similar pantomimed intimacy. So I love that.
And I think so much of it is about just kind of projecting these narratives right onto the image because of our, understanding of what a family portrait looks like. We bring a certain set of expectations and assumptions, and we construct narratives based on the images that we look at. So I think then when you find out that it's all one big construct, it's, it's interesting, that process that one goes through as a viewer. So
it's really, really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear a little bit. I mean, I think a lot of people had shifting day-to-days and, transitions to remote work. But as a photographer, I feel like you probably had some liberty in the sense that, you could essentially be a kind of mobile studio. I'm just curious what the past year has brought for you in terms of your day-to-day work life.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I mean, I had a studio at Mana Contemporary in Jersey City.
Yeah, of course.
And it was amazing. And I was there for several years. And at the start of the pandemic, I was still visiting. I was still trying to go as often as I could, which I did leave Brooklyn, my home, early March. But I was going back and forth maybe once a week initially. Until it started to get bad. And that's when I started home more. And, I did transition remotely. And like you said, it is much easier when working remotely, working digitally rather. And I think for me, the obstacle was more the fact that at the time I had a 3-year-old son, or he was like 2.5 or almost 3. And I was pregnant. So I guess my challenges were just more personal at that point. And, I was 7.5 months pregnant when I went quarantine. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, as far as my scheduling now, I work oftentimes at night and when my daughter naps. So and luckily a partner who helps me, and we tag team. So
Yeah.
that makes a big difference.
I love that. Well, we've been asking a lot of people how they've managed to stay busy, but I don't think you've had any problem managing to stay busy.
Or managing to stay sane.
I completely understand. But I mean, yeah. So tell us a little bit, how have you found the time to kind of inject your work into this new kind of this life that we've all cultivated for ourselves?
Well, I think for me, it's taken on many different forms. Initially, like I said, when I was 7.5 months pregnant, I went into quarantine and I started photographing myself, my pregnant body, my changing body, and just the fears that I had at that time. And that was actually really cathartic and unexpected in many ways, right? I didn't anticipate on making work by any means. So I started to turn the camera on myself, and I did a series of these self-portraits that were very intimate and very, I think, raw and vulnerable, and very much about, the different challenges that I was kind of faced with.
Yeah.
So I started there, and then as far, I guess, it's a year now. And then from there, I had my daughter. Fortunately, I actually photographed the whole birth. It was during the apex of the pandemic in New York City. So it was that week in April that was
oh my gosh, that's incredible. Yeah.
So I brought my camera in with me, and it was like the only way I was able to get through it all. And so I was really focused on that work. And then from there, it was a few months before I started making work again. The first few months of mothering my daughter, I took like a 3-month break from it all, and then I started up again. And the Skin Hunger Project really, as I said, took on it took on unexpected forms. I think there's been a certain silver lining of just access to people, conversations, that maybe you wouldn't have ordinarily through Zoom. I've interviewed maybe now 36 people in the community. Wow, and it's been a remarkable experience for me. And I feel like I'm, gathering a lot. There's a lot of research that's going into the project. The photography component is a little trickier, but I am still photographing my experience via Zoom with some of the virtual cuddle sessions that I've been having. So I think, we make do with the situation, that we're presented with. And although there are challenges, I feel very inspired, oddly enough. And I'm really excited about the work I'm making. I'm excited about the conversations I'm having. So despite all of the chaos and uncertainty, like right now I'm in my closet and I'm having a meeting because my 2 children are so
I love it.
So it's not the ideal circumstance, but we work with what we have and we adapt. And I think that's the beauty of being an artist in many ways.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that sentiment. And, I do think that there's a beauty in the adaptability, and I don't know, we're resilient as a community, we're resilient as creatives. So I appreciate hearing all of the ways that you've navigated this.
Yeah.
You also hold an academic position, and you are the coordinator of photography at UPenn. You're a lecturer. Have you continued to do some of those activities throughout this? All of the other things that you've also been juggling, Jamie?
Oh my goodness. So I am the coordinator of the undergraduate photography department at the University of Pennsylvania, and like I said, last year, I was pregnant. I gave birth in April. I was still teaching all the way through. And I think I took 1 week off the week I gave birth. But apart from that, I'm still teaching. The pandemic presented us many complications, as you can imagine. We had to navigate many challenges and uncertainties, mainly regarding equitability and access to internet and just the basic logistics. But of course, I guess one of the things that impressed me is just not only the resilience, but the creative and the robust approach to, to reassessing goals, to redesigning the curriculum, restructuring the syllabus, we've had to completely restructure to an online teaching experience.
Yeah.
And there's been, I don't know, it certainly demonstrates, strength and perseverance, and the, overall the power of the Penn community, particularly.
Yeah.
I'm always in awe of. So it's been a challenge, that's for sure. But there's been other interesting things that have come about as a result. We did some really interesting virtual exhibitions, and we initiated a few lecture series where we invited alumni to present on their work and their trajectory since leaving the university. We also initiated a program where we had all faculty introduce their work to our community. So things that we have never done before. It was a very conducive experience, and I think a success overall. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, it does sound to me like not only I think perseverance, all of the things that you say, but it also shows the commitment to education. And at the end of the day, there is this kind of silver lining that, this beauty in the fact that you guys did have all these resources, which are the faculty and the community, and you were able to kind of cast the camera literally on them during this, this time. Yeah. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
Jamie, we love to end with a few little professional practice questions. And, I'd be curious to hear what one thing that you do every day in your personal or your professional life that you think is critical to your success.
That's a big question.
I
would say that I don't have something habitual that I do every day. That's just not, I wish I did, but for me, it's not, that's not necessarily how I work. But I think things that I do that help me considerably is I often try to carve out time for myself, for my work. I read a lot, like extensively, as much as I can, of course, in these times. And, like just trying to remove all the distractions of our lives from, the internet and social media. And I think in many ways, this experience has taught us, how to slow down. I think that's an lining, just, some of the, I guess, the positives that have come out of this experience, and also to value our alone time, our, ability to, be in our studio or wherever that may be, whether it's a virtual or remote experience, or, spending more time with our family and friends. But, I think there's a lot of takeaways from this experience overall. Yeah, so I don't know if there's like one piece of advice I would have, but I would just say to slow down and, to make sure you carve out that time every day, whether it's for, a half hour or a few hours for yourself.
I think those are all great takeaways, and they certainly are very pertinent to kind of the moment. So I think those are great notes to conclude on. And I think, Jamie, maybe just to reiterate for the listeners, we have 2 exhibitions forthcoming, and one that the date is TBD. And we, maybe you can just reiterate what milestone we should be keeping an eye on.
Milestone in terms of my past, or
no, just like what, maybe you can just reiterate these 2 exhibitions that, we should just pay attention to so that we know where to follow you.
Sure, of course. So I have 2 exhibitions. One is, everything's keep changing because of the pandemic.
Of course.
But the one in Hamburg, I believe, now opens April 20th. It's at the Deichterhallen in Hamburg, and it's a group exhibition. And the one at the CCA in Montreal, I believe, opens now in October.
Great.
But there's a lot of interesting and exciting programming around the exhibition. And as I said, I recently did a conversation with Melissa Harris on the that kind of pertains to the exhibition, and also on my work in general and other kind of thematic links. And then the other exciting solo exhibition I have is at Kivna Gallery, and that will hopefully be at the end of this year. So yes, very
amazing. Well, it has been really such a pleasure to speak with you today. And I think you have some very exciting things on the horizon, so you should feel very proud. And it sounds to me like you have a beautiful growing family. So, you're doing it well, Jamie.
Try. juggling act, but you know, I always say just get through each day. I can't think about my future right now, but no, I'm
It's
feeling
in the
very,
making.
yes, that's right. Well, thank you so much for having me, and it was so nice to chat with you.
Yeah, likewise, Jamie. Thank you.